today's episode of Left Off the Map, Henry Terry is learning a lot about crayfishing on the East Coast. Back in the kitchen, I'm making a super versatile Madeira cake, but to start today's episode, it's Peking duck with tomato salsa. Peking duck is one of those difficult things to do at home, which is why most people buy Peking duck already prepared. And the good thing is you can buy just the breast, so that's what I'm going to use today to make a Peking duck and tomato salad. I'm adding a few extra little flavours to the tomato. I'm going to use some chorizo, the oil that comes out of chorizo, which mainly is flavoured by garlic and paprika and a little bit of soy. I'm also going to use salt, but I'm going to add some soy to add a depth of umami to my tomato salad. The first thing I need to do is render out those flavours from my chorizo. So I've got one chorizo sausage. Just cut it into rounds. And we're going to eat the chorizo as well, so that will be mixed in with the salad. So it's not just the oil we're trying to get out. So having nice rounds creates a really sort of nice textural piece of chewy chorizo that goes really well with the soft tomatoes. I'm going to slowly bring the heat into the pan and extract a lot of that flavour out of our chorizo. Oil in with that. About 1/4 cup of oil, because we're going to use that oil as our dressing for our tomatoes. Now that's going to cook away for about 10 to 15 minutes on a low heat, and it will start to crisp up a little bit. The outsides will go nice and golden brown. And then at the end, we're going to throw in some sliced garlic and turn the heat off, just for that garlic to infuse into the oil. While that's happening, I can cut up my tomatoes. So I've got different sizes here. I've got small black Russians, or Kamados, as they're known, and bigger ones. So these ones, the little cherry ones, cherry Kamados, I'm just going to chop them in half. So for my larger ones, just chop them in half, and then just sort of roll chop your tomato into some different shapes, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And then once I'm done chopping my tomatoes, I'm going to do the same thing. Well, not exactly the same. I'm not going to roll chop, but some spring onion. I'm just going to slice that up as well. Reasonably chunky. I don't want really sort of thin slices. About 1 centimetre to 2 centimetre pieces of spring onion, just on an angle. So this is a nice chunky salad. So everything now is pretty much set. I can let my chorizo do its thing for about 10 to 15 minutes. While that's cooking away, I'll get my Peking duck into the oven. Just need to take it out of this packaging, put it into an oven at 190 degrees, skin side up, for about 10 to 15 minutes. I've just turned my chorizo off, so I just want to put, it's a pretty big clove of garlic, probably 2 cloves of garlic if they're not massive like this one is. Slice it thinly, and while there's still heat in that pan, this will just infuse that garlic flavour into that oil. Just pop that in. And then some of the cooking juices that have come out of the packet of that Peking duck, just want to put a couple of spoons of that in there. It's going to help make our dressing or our sauce. And just mix that all in together, and that'll melt into that oil. Done. My tomatoes can go into a bowl with my spring onions. And some parsley. You want a sort of a big handful of parsley. Just roll it into like a cigar. And run your knife through it. It's always best to do this with a really sharp knife as well. Otherwise you end up just bruising all of your herbs. What you don't want is you don't want your board to start going green. If your board starts going green, it means you're smashing the herbs, and all that chlorophyll that's in there is coming out onto your board, and you want that to stay in the herbs so they stay nice and fresh. Give that a stir. So all we need to do now is wait for that duck to finish. It's got probably 5 more minutes. Keep my sauce nice and warm. I'm going to add a little bit of soy sauce to that. So we've got 5 more minutes to go. Our dressing is done, our tomatoes are ready, our duck's got 5 more minutes, so we can bring that out and carve it up, and we're ready to serve the dish up. Dressing is still warm, but it's cooled down enough for us to move on now. Now, big pinch of salt in with my tomatoes. Salt loves tomatoes. My dressing and my chorizo, just pour it in on top of that tomato mix. Let it stir through. Look at that. All covered in that beautiful dressing. Everything still looks nice and vibrant and crisp and plump and beautiful. Started to warm through. My duck can come out. Turn my oven off. So that's been in for 15 minutes. Duck breast is perfect. Just take them out and pop them in pan. Yeah. It smells so good in here. Put down some of your tomato mix into your bowl. All that juice as well. Oh. My duck. Oh, look how tender that is. Duck on top of that. Little pinch of salt on top of my duck. And then some of the dressing that's in the bottom of this bowl. Just spoon some of that on the top of your duck. There we go, a perfect duck dinner or even lunch, I reckon at this lunchtime on a beautiful day with a glass of white wine or even a beer would be absolutely divine. It's nice and healthy, it's going to be filling, it's going to taste fresh, you're going to get that beautiful gamey flavour from the duck. And like I said before, normally Peking duck is quite time consuming. This comes together in 15 minutes, so it's a nice, simple, easy dish, which is going to taste like you put a lot more effort in. Give it a try.
Marcus, thanks for having me at the Lobster Shack, home of the famous lobster roll. We're in the, what would you call this room?
Yeah, we call this the tank room. This is where we keep all the live lobsters and live fish.
Yep.
For the cafe. So, yeah, we cook the lobsters fresh every morning.
Yep.
The kitchen staff let us know how many they think they're going to need for the day, and we get them out to cook them up, and that ensures you're getting the freshest possible seafood.
Seriously fresh. So you're not just doing lobsters, I see. You've got fish swimming in here. What else do you do?
Yeah, look, we hold the live lobsters. We fish for live banded mowong and wrasse, which we send to Sydney. And we've also got a octopus fishing business where we catch ockies out off Bicheno here, and we pickle those and serve those up in the cafe as well.
How do you catch an octopus?
Yeah, pretty simple. Just a piece of PVC pipe laid out on the sand, and they come along and make that their home. Right. And then we just come along sort of once a month and pull them up and find the ockies in there.
Oh, there you go. I had no idea. I do a lot of fishing, and I get the occasional one coming up on my sinker for some reason, but I've never been able to actually know how to actually catch them. They're very smart creatures.
Yeah, they are very intelligent, yeah.
So the crays are for here. These banded mowong, where do they go? What's their...
Yeah, we've got some buyers up in Sydney who purchase those off us. So, yeah, we sort of found that with our business model, just to have as much diversification as possible, just helps keep things ticking over at certain times. You know, so we're busy, but we're well afloat.
Far out. I know that the banded morwong for me growing up was like absolutely prized in our house because they're very hard to. Well, you make it look like they're easy to catch, but in my experience, very difficult to catch. A lot of fishermen at Binalong Bay, they will actually they'll go diving for them, spearfishing and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's so good to eat. I'd love to try one. So we've got some lobster in here. Can I pick one up?
Yeah, sure. Yep. You go for that one.
They're spiky buggers, aren't they? Look at that. Oh, bit mean. So, tell me, how big do these things get? This is a pretty big cray, isn't it?
Yeah, that one's probably about 1.2 kilos.
Yep.
They get up to probably 4.5, 5 kilos up around the islands in Bass Strait.
Yep.
Yeah, so they're a very long-lived animal.
Yep.
That fish there is probably 10 or 12 years old.
Wow.
I'd imagine.
Yep. And how are they fished?
Yeah, the lobster fishermen use a circular cane pot.
Yep.
They run about 50 of those on their boats and drop those over rocky reefs with bait in them overnight. Crayfish come along and get in the pot and they go and pull the pots every morning and see what's there.
Okay, so what is the crayfish, how does it live? It's obviously living on reefs. What's its food source and how does it get by? Because it's obviously very spiky and can defend itself, but I can't see it swimming out in the open very much.
No, look, they really just prey on shellfish, sea urchins, you know, they scavenge on dead and dying animals as well.
Yep.
Yeah, they are sort of set up for defence.
Yep.
They live under rocks.
Yep.
They, try to make it difficult as possible for other animals to attack them, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, they're well equipped at the front there, and if they just tuck into a rock, they'd be safe as houses, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. I'll put him back in. What's the best way to eat lobster?
Yeah, there's a few ways. Obviously, the lobster roll's very popular and people really enjoy that.
Yep.
Yeah, you could just fresh, natural is probably one of my favourites. You really get to taste the lobster meat and get that salty flavour, you know.
That's what I do. I just boil them for 7 minutes in salt water and then away you go. Just straight out of the shell.
Yeah, look, you don't have to do a lot to fresh seafood. It's got to taste all of its own. So usually simplest is best.
Yeah. That said, your lobster roll with your secret sauce obviously takes it up a level. And you can get that here at the Lobster Shack all year round.
Yep, awesome. Definitely. Like, they're a very popular dish. But we make sure we've got them on tap at any time of the year.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for your time. I might go out the front and see if I can't wrangle a lobster roll.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for dropping in.
Cheers, Marcus.
Madeira cake is a great basic recipe to have at your disposal. You can use the base recipe and then add whatever flavour you want to it. But it's a good recipe because the cake stays nice and moist due to the almond meal that you put in it. So I'm going to show you a basic Madeira recipe, and then what you do with that is totally limited by your imagination. You can add any flavour you want to it. First thing, I need to pop into my mixer my butter and my sugar. So I've got 170 grams of butter, softened butter. So leave it out so it can get up to room temperature. Then about half a cup of sugar. Now a base Madeira cake is not overly sweet. It's up to you to add things to it. Madeira is often used for a trifle, so you're adding sweet accompaniments to go along with the cake. The cake or the sponge itself is just there as the base component. So you can put raspberries through it, blueberries, you can add in choc chip, whatever you want to do. It's just a really good base cake to have. So I want to mix this together, my butter and my sugar, until it's nice and light, pale and fluffy. It could take up to 10 minutes to do. Butter, egg and sugar mixture is nice and light. It's a really pale yellow, which is what we want. It's light and fluffy, so I can turn that off. And the stand mixer's done most of the heavy lifting for us. Everything can be added with a spatula now. I'll take my bowl off. Almond meal. I've got 3/4 of a cup of almond meal. Some vanilla, about a teaspoon and a half of vanilla. Bring those things together. Now the almond meal is what will keep it moist. There are lots of different ways in which you can keep a cake moist. Almond meal is one of them. Coconut, desiccated coconut is another. Adding a little bit more sugar is one. Adding a sugar syrup is another. So there are a few different ways, but for what we're doing here, we're going to add almond meal. Then some plain flour. I need about a cup of flour. A cup of plain flour. About a teaspoon and a half of baking powder. And you're going to fold all that together. And this is the point where you would add extra ingredients if you wanted to. So if you wanted to make a raspberry style cake, put some raspberries in there, blueberries like I said before. If you wanted to add some choc chips, white choc chips, dark choc chips, it's up to you. Whatever flavours you can think of, this is the point in which you would fold them through. You could put some bananas down inside your Madeira tin and then put the batter on top. You'd end up with a nice upside down cake. It's completely up to you. But that's our base recipe made. Just want to add this to a loaf tin. My oven is on 170, so we'll get that going. Pop our cake mixture into our tin. And that'll go into our oven at 170 for about 35 minutes until the skewer comes out nice and clean. It's really good. A lot of people make a sponge when they're making a lamington as well, but this is a really good base recipe to make lamingtons. So if you wanted to, you could cut this into little squares or rectangles afterwards. Add some chocolate and coconut to it, and you'd end up with some nice lamingtons. So it's a simple recipe, but it can be made more complex if you want to. But a basic Madeira cake like this, you could even, when you're finished baking it, you could put some syrup, put some lime or lemon syrup over the top. It would soak that syrup up quite nicely because it's got that almond meal in there. It'll help soak up that syrup. So it's a good one for syrup cakes as well. Oh, something about cake batter. Reminds you of your childhood. All right, that can go into our oven for, like I said, about 35 minutes. So it's nice and golden on top and a skewer comes out clean. My Madeira cake should be cooked, so I'll bring that out and just do a quick test. Nice and golden in colour. Skewers come out clean, so that's right to go. Turn that out. So just run a knife or a palette knife around the edges, make sure it comes away cleanly. If you didn't have a non-stick baking, if you didn't have a non-stick loaf tin like I've got, then you want to put some baking paper down and make sure you grease the inside really well. So I'll turn that out. Now I just want to pop that onto, you can put it onto a cooling rack if you want to. Just place it onto a plate and then you can put some icing on top again if you want. The classic lemon icing goes perfectly with this, so lemon juice, some icing, sugar, and put that sort of lemon white icing on top if you want to. What I like about it, as I said before, is it's a very versatile, basic recipe to have in your arsenal to be able to use whenever you want, add things to it if you want to. But the classic Madeira flavour, like this, with a little bit of lemon icing on top, is absolutely beautiful.